about the man who accepts a torch to be handed down to me from an organization that died, R.I.P., 7 years ago. The franchise, Shane Douglas, is the man who ignites the new flame of the sport of professional wrestling.
I was originally going to do this episode as a part of a video review for a live XPW show DVD. While recording the footage for, the cutaways, for me actually talking directly to the camera and setting up different, the segments that actually have me on camera, I came off very angry. I was very angry at Shane Douglas in particular, because this whole Extreme Reunion thing has irked me the wrong way since it was announced. And Shane Douglas going on Raw and embarrassing himself in Philadelphia, being escorted from the building with like 5 people that even noticed he was fucking there. 20,000 people did not chant ECW, no matter what he said. You did not hear it on TV, and it was a live show. It was a live Raw. You would have heard it on the live Raw. It wasn't there. Okay, the guy was delusional. The guy has been delusional for a long time, and I hate saying that about him, because one of the cruxes of this show, is that Shane Douglas quote from 1994 when he threw down the NWA Championship, when he proclaimed himself the ECW champion, and he said that he was not the man that would accept a torch passed down to him from a dead organization. ECW is dead. Dead, 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 dead. Extreme is dead. Extreme has been dead. Extreme has been dead in the zeitgeist for almost a decade. Extreme in wrestling has been dead since Ring of Honor became part of the internet consciousness. And I'm not even kidding about that. Ring of Honor did the fucking impossible in the mid-2000s and convinced the entire fucking internet wrestling community, who had just 10 years before been all about Japanese death matches and Taipei and blood and violence and flaming tables and shit, and it was all back to headlocks and hour-long matches. You did not have this in 97, 98, 99 in the hardcore wrestling fan base. A hardcore wrestling fan base, you knew what a hardcore wrestling fan was by what they watch. And that's how it works these days. Okay? In 1997, 98, 99, you knew a hardcore fan not from watching some obscure NWA Holdfest. You didn't even know them by watching WCW. They were ECW fans all the fucking way. They were the guys that traded tapes. They were the guys that were watching Mick Foley kill himself in fucking Japan. Okay? It was all about blood, guts, gore. CZW exists today because the hardcore wrestling fan base that we all know of now, that are supposedly sucking on Ring of Honor's dick, according to the generalization that I get all the time for being the hardcore smart fan. Oh, you're just sucking on Ring of Honor's dick. Oh, you're just sucking on Gabe Sapolsky's dick. I'm like, I can't fucking stand Evolve, to be honest with you, but okay. The people that think of us that way, 10 years ago, we were, that fan base was watching FMW, was watching XPW, was watching ECW, was watching these guys do these Japanese death matches. And that's dead. That's gone. The fan base that we have today grew out of it. We aren't as angry anymore. We're not Limp Bizkit fans anymore. We're not, we're not all Korn fans anymore. If we are, those of us who are still don't want to see that sick, violent shit. We got tired of it. We got tired of seeing people's careers ended because of it. We also were shown better wrestling. That is in a big part because of promotions like Ring of Honor, because the WWE for a long time was starting to feature more athletic wrestling. When they picked up the WCW guys, when they picked up Benoit and Malenko and Eddie Guerrero and Perry Saturn, you noticed they also had Chris Jericho, and there was a shift in the WWE towards better in-ring competitors. Because for the first 2 years that WWE was gaining traction, 98, 99, in the Monday Night Wars, those mid-card matches were unwatchable. Val Venus, Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, basically you were, if you were a WCW fan like me, you would flip on to Raw and you'd stay for the Austin segments, and you'd stay for the Mankind segment. You'd stay for like Rock or Mankind or Austin. The moment you had to watch a wrestling match on that fucking show, you were going back to WCW, and you didn't care how bad the storylines were in WCW at the time. You didn't care that the NWO was just 17 factions and all kind of bickering with each other, because you knew that if you watched WCW, you were going to watch some good wrestling. You were watching Raw, you were going to watch... Yeah, those mid-card matches were terrible. Fucking horrible. And here's the funny thing is, so was ECW's mid-card. Basically, even the main events in ECW were really bad. But we accepted them because they were fucking violent as shit. The thing is that the wrestling fan base has changed. Everything has changed. The hardcore fan base, the casual fan base, we want different things in wrestling than we did 10 years ago. We don't want the violent stuff. We don't necessarily want everybody shooting. So you have Shane Douglas still riding this Limp Bizkit era of professional wrestling. This talk with your cock sort of style of wrestling, where blood and guts were more important than headlocks and suplexes. Where you got over by being a controversial personality rather than being a relatable, fun guy. It was a completely different era of wrestling. Is a completely different zeitgeist that we were working with. It was a completely different music that was popular at the time. It was a completely different culture at the time. The late 90s bred this sort of extreme that we wanted everything to be extreme. And, nowadays people, extreme just sounds stupid, silly. These days, if you're extreme, you're trying too hard. People are really cynical about that. Like, they're trying too hard. Everybody's too cool for the room now. So you can't go after them with blood, guts, and gore, because they see blood, guts, and gore and like, what is this? A Slaughterhouse movie? What is this? Friday the 13th? Fuck that shit. God. Here I am. It's 2012. And I've seen ECW attempted to be revived, 8 times by now, at least. And I'm going back to even when XPW tried to do it. XPW tried to revive the whole ECW vibe in 2002, when Shane Douglas got out of his WCW contract and went back to XPW. And that whole thing. I was there. I was at the front door for that. Practically, literally. I was on the front door when XPW was coming to the East Coast and trying to recreate the ECW vibe. I was so on board with that when it started to happen. I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to see Shane Douglas, I want to see Chris Candido, I want to see Jerry Lynn, I want to see Juventud Guerrera, I want to see this fucking great, this fucking violent product. I want to see, I want to see this toad-looking dude named Supreme, like, kill people and shit, I was on board with that in 2002. And what happened was Rob Black and Lizzie Borden got arrested for obscenity because of their other company that specializes in really, really creepy porn. And here I am, I'm the fan on the forefront of, the next ECW, and like 3 months after I started getting, 3 months after I even heard of this fucking company and what it was trying to do, and Shane Douglas at the helm. Shane Douglas, the franchise, the guy I didn't get to see in ECW, because by the time I got to see ECW on TV, it was on TNN, and Shane Douglas was in WCW. I never got to see Shane Douglas in ECW. I never got to see the franchise the way the franchise was supposed to be done. So I wanted to see that. I was reading about it, and people would tell me about it, but I never got to actually see it. And so XPW, the franchise, the real fucking franchise. And 3 months after I find out about this, it's taken from me. And yeah, it kind of fucks with me. So then a few years later, you have sort of the WWE ECW revival. It starts with the documentary, then some DVD releases, then you have the ECW reunion show, and, it's like, hey, at least I'm getting to see some ECW. They're releasing some of the back catalog so I can catch up on some of this. I can see some of the older shit. I can hopefully see Shane Douglas in his prime. And then they do Hardcore Homecoming, which I have, and actually think is a decent show for what it is. All it was meant to be was a homecoming show for the hardest of hardcore ECW fans done in the arena. It wasn't being done necessarily as a cash grab. It was being done because, the ECW documentary was hot and people were practically begging to see an ECW reunion in 2005. It was right at the time. So when Shane Douglas was trying to put this shit together with Jeremy Borash, it made sense. And then, fucking hell, WWE owned it. WWE did what it wanted. It revived the brand and proceeded to rape it. Which, fine, whatever. Hey, it's Vince McMahon's property. I guess we should just be happy with what it was. I don't know. I've been on this roller coaster so many fucking times that when I heard about Extreme Reunion, I'm just like, God, fucking damn it, again. I saw XPW do this. I saw some, shithouse indies do this. I saw, Shane do this. I saw WWE do this. I even had to sit through fucking TNA doing this shit. Okay? And then Shane Douglas is 50 years old, or will be 50 years old in like the next few months or whatever. 49 years old. Older than anyone he was bitching at 10, 15 years ago when he was telling them to get out of the fucking business, Ric Flair in particular. And here he is, main event, going over in the main event of his own fucking show, trying to revive ECW again. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I was so fucking angry about angry at the concept that Shane Douglas, a guy who I not only respected, but let's just say Shane Douglas not being a guy that conformed to the norm, a guy that wasn't accepting a bunch of old fucks at the top because, hey, this is wrestling, we need to evolve and grow. Somebody that understood that shit, or at least seemed to. Somebody that really helped mold me as a fan in the vulnerable years when, I still really didn't understand wrestling. Okay? So, as a fan, I kind of looked up to Shane Douglas. Like, Shane Douglas was somebody that got it. Okay? It's 2012 and he does this shit. And it basically pisses on everything he's ever said. Everything. From I'm not the man that takes the torch handed down to me from a dead organization, to the shit he was saying in his Club WWI interview about Dixie Carter and how she was basically just raping the corpse of ECW to prop up her own company and in the process cheating people out of a decent payday. I felt betrayed. Betrayed. And I don't like feeling betrayed. This is just what's going through my head as I'm learning that Extreme Reunion happens, that Extreme Reunion was going to happen, that it did happen, that it bombed as badly as it did, that the promotion and the show went as badly as it did, that main event talents were in no condition to perform, and there was no real strong backups at Shane Douglas at 49 years of age. nowhere near in shape, pissing on every single sentence I've ever endorsed on this fucking show. And I'm not even kidding. Every fucking quote I've ever used of Shane Douglas on this show was violently shat upon by the mere concept of Extreme Reunion, let alone the execution. The execution just made it worse. And I don't like using the word hypocrite, because when you use it, it often tends to bounce back and hit you almost as hard. Because that's what fanboys will use. Oh, how dare you call him a hypocrite? You're this and you're that, and, you know. But hypocritical is the only word that describes what Shane Douglas did. And he released a statement where he realizes his mistakes. He knows what needs to change. He announced that he was removing himself from the active roster. He didn't say he was retiring. He said he was not going to perform for Extreme Reunion, which ought to be a red flag right there. He says he's going to make good. Well, he really better. He really ought to. Because the ECW fan base, the people that made ECW what it was, deserve better. And there is better out there. There are better shows. Ring of Honor, Dragon Gate, Chikara, Shimmer, WSU. You know, if you're really that angry as an ECW fan and you want the blood and guts and gore and you want to pretend that it's still 1999, well, go fuck yourself, because you're basically just like all the old ECW guys that can't realize it's over. And I don't want to get on a self-righteous tirade. I really don't. That was the reason why I didn't want to do the video the way I was, because that was what I was sounding like. It was starting to feel like I was coming off as sort of a self-righteous dick, and I don't want to be that, you know, about this, because there may have been some good intentions, but this isn't about ECW's legacy anymore. It's about being a man of your word and respecting the art of professional wrestling. And Shane Douglas may not agree with everything he's ever done. He may not agree with, you know, how badly he's buried certain people in the business, what he's buried them for. He does have a tendency to go after hot button guys to put himself over. But that also shows that he's smart and he knows who to talk shit about, basically. I just hate the fact that, you know, somebody that I respected as a performer, that this is how it, you know, it's disappointing, and I don't want any part of it.